Senator Kelly.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I am extremely privileged and blessed to rise this evening as a representative of the citizens, neighbors, and friends that reside in the towns of Monroe, Seymour, Shelton, and Stratford. For the past 3 months, since the governor announced his proposed budget, I've had the opportunity to take that budget and go to the 4 communities and have town hall meetings. I've also gone to senior centers. I've gone to parents' councils. I've gone and met with local small businesses, be they pharmacists, hospitals, manufacturers, truck drivers, and car dealers. I've met with local officials and local school boards. I met with the man who pumps my gas, talked to people waiting in line for coffee in the morning, the man that I buy my morning newspaper. Wherever I go, whether it's at church, walking the dog around the block, wherever I happen to meet someone and query them, what do you think? And what do you think the response was? Not one person that I met with told me that the state doesn't spend enough and that they're taxed too little. Let me say that again. In the 3 months and the hundreds of people that I've met, no one has asked me to come to Hartford to spend more money or to take more out of their pocket through taxation. Yet that is exactly what this budget is going to do. It's going to increase spending. It's going to be the largest tax increase in Connecticut's history. And it has almost $1 billion. Not only do we have $3.2 billion deficit, but we have almost $1 billion worth of new spending in the budget. Largest tax increase, $1 billion worth of new spending. That's an old-fashioned recipe of tax and spend that has gotten us into this mess to begin with. And the problem that I see, and that I'm frustrated, because I'm relatively new, elected in November, I've only been here a few months, but I'm frustrated in the sense that I expected to come to Hartford and find sound public policy, that we would look at today's problems, see the effect, and then deal with the root cause of those problems so that we don't continue to revisit the past. But yet, we were in this situation going back in time. That's why we got the income tax. And here we are again, continuing to spend and continuing to look to Connecticut residents to spend their money. I think it's the way you come to the equation. How do we view the citizens' money? I know how I do. I view it as theirs. And I believe they view it as theirs. But sometimes, when we look at it, we see government views the taxpayers' money as its own. And we start to hear comments like, we can't afford a tax cut. Or if we're going to give a break to the taxpayers, that's a tax expenditure. I know how the taxpayers in my district view their money. They view it dearly. And when we look back over history, since 1987, the population in the state of Connecticut has increased a mere 9%. Inflation has grown 90%. How much do you think state spending has increased? 287%. Wouldn't it be nice if all our salaries increased 287%? But it hasn't. And what was once a $1,500 burden to every taxpayer in the state of Connecticut has increased to almost a $5,300 tax burden. And the middle class today in the state of Connecticut is crying, it's screaming, "Uncle, give us a break." So where is the common sense? As I look at this budget, I see that there's DSS. We're going to transfer in the first year $2.75 million, and in the second year $3.4 million from the Tobacco and Health Trust Fund to DSS to support smoking cessation programs. And then we're going to turn around on the revenue side and tax smoking cessation products. So we're going to encourage people to quit smoking and then tax them on the products they need to do so. Just a casual observer watching the process. Another section of the budget is going to permit DSS to make advanced payments to nursing homes, to give them the ability to help them. The government's going to help them manage cash flow. Matter of fact, late last week we saw 4 nursing homes in Connecticut are closing because they're going bankrupt. And then on the other hand, we're going to tax nursing homes and levy a provider tax that's going to take almost $60 million out of the industry. You want to help that industry with its cash flow needs? Leave the money in the industry so that we don't lose more nursing homes and we don't lose more jobs. Because when I was elected, that's what the constituents said to me, that job one in Connecticut should be to keep the jobs we have and then start looking to help grow new ones. This budget, unfortunately, does neither. Now let's turn to what it's doing to our middle class. We're going to increase the income tax, starting at earners, a single person, at $50,000. 50. A married couple at $100,000. Once again, taxing people at a very $50,000 in Connecticut is very, very easy to get to. We're going to put tax on clothing. Even if you decide you can't afford to buy your own clothes, you want to make your own clothes, we're going to tax that endeavor. You can't even knit your own pair of socks without getting taxed on the yarn to make your socks. We're going to tax non-prescription drugs. So when your child catches a cold and you need some Tylenol and cough medicine, government's going to come and take a piece of that transaction. We're going to tax our electricity, as if our electricity isn't high enough. The only state that has a higher tax on or a cost of electricity is Hawaii. The budget doesn't reinstate the property tax credit to its full amount. And basically, if you're a middle-class family in the state of Connecticut, you're going to pay more than $1,000 in extra taxes this year and next. Now I'd like to turn to a subject that's near and dear to me, which is dealing with seniors and home care. This budget, and as I said, I went to the senior centers in Seymour and Monroe, Shelton and Stratford, and the response was the same. They all said, do what you can because we want to stay home. And in the more than 25 years that I've been involved in dealing with senior issues, I can count on one hand the number of individuals that want to go to a nursing home. So nobody wants to go. And then second, when you look at it, the average cost of care to the state of Connecticut in a nursing home is $8,500. The average cost of home care is $2,500. So staying home is cheaper to the taxpayers. And then studies have shown that the care received by loved ones and family members is better than that received in an institution. So if nobody wants to go, it's cheaper and arguably better. Why can't we get there? Why? It makes sense. And then you see a document like this budget, and you start to come to the realization as to why. Now, talking about finances, the Connecticut Commission on Aging produced a report that I saw last year in the fall, where it said if we can rebalance our long-term care dollars away from institutional to home care, we could save as much as $1 billion. $1 billion. This isn't chump change. This is a lot of money. Yet what are we doing? We're creating a system and a structure that's going to put more pressure on our seniors to go to institutional care. In 2009 to 2010, we had a reduction in the number of individuals in nursing homes. Yet this budget looks to repeal not only 1073, but also looks at the Connecticut Home Care Program and asks seniors to contribute more toward the cost of their care. Back in 1988, Congress passed what is known as the Medicaid Catastrophic Coverage Act, which leveled the playing field for seniors. Prior to that, what happened when somebody applied for long-term care, regardless of whose asset it was, the individual that was applying is who the state Medicaid agency looked at. And that act wanted to level the playing field. It looked at marital assets, and the aim of it was to help the community spouse. And I want to read a quote from Congressman Henry Waxman, who, in supporting that bill, stated, "In this bill, we reduce the risk of financial devastation from nursing home care by providing that the Medicaid program allow the spouse of a nursing home resident to retain enough of the couple's income and resources to continue to live in the community. No longer will a wife be driven to choose between poverty and divorce if her husband enters a nursing home." Now, it's interesting that Congressman Waxman used in the statement the wife as the community spouse, because when you look at the general population, it's 50-50 roughly, men to women. Yet if you walk into a nursing home, you're going to see that the census population in a nursing home is 85% female. And is that just because men don't like nursing homes and aren't going to go? No, it's because actuarially we age faster, but we also get to age in place. So when we look at taking away opportunities to allow both spouses to age in place, we're not doing that to the first spouse to get sick. We're doing that to the second spouse, which is often the female. This budget seeks to repeal Public Act 1073. Madam President, I do have a question on on the appropriation.
Senator Hart, prepare yourself.
I see that the budget states that there will be almost a $30 million savings. It's $29 million in the first year. It's $30 million in the second year. Where are those savings coming from?
Senator Hart.
Thank you very much. Through you, Madam President, the savings come from disregarding less of the assets that the community spouse has. And it rolls us back to, we changed that asset level last year, and it rolls it back to the previous level, and that's what creates the savings, as I understand it.
Senator Kelly.
The asset limit as it is now is $109,500 and some odd dollars. And what I think the administration wants to do or seeks to do is to divide that in half. But what, am I correct in that?
Through me, Senator. Senator Hart.
Thank you very much. What it does, and I don't know whether or not it's in half or not, but it rolls it back to the asset level that we had prior to making the change that was enabled by federal law.
Senator Kelly.
I don't understand how that would be a savings. All that does is it changes an asset limit for participation in the Medicaid program. How would that save money?
Through me, sir. Senator Hart.
Through you, Madam President, what that would mean, through you, Madam President, is that if you have assets that are over that level, you would have to spin down those assets by paying for your spouse's care in the nursing home prior to your spouse becoming eligible for Medicaid reimbursement for nursing home services.
Senator Kelly.
Through you, Madam President, is there a requirement in federal law during the spend down to spend the money on nursing home care?
Senator Hart.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President, there is a requirement that the state will not pay for the care of your spouse as long as you have had over the past 5 years an asset level that is higher than our state law approves of. So basically what we're doing by going back is that we're lowering the level of assets that a family can carry and have the state pay for the care of the loved one in the nursing home. So ultimately what that means is that either the nursing home picks up the cost or a family member outside of the spouse picks up the cost, but the state will not pick up the cost until the assets are spent down to an amount that the state has through statute or regulation approved of. Now, we were allowed to go up 2 years ago, and we're going back to where we were, and it created a savings, as you point out, of up to over $30 million.
Senator Kelly.
Okay, I understand that as part of a spend down, whether the number is 109,000 or, for sake of argument, 50,000, if we spend down to whatever number that is, you're going to be eligible at that point for Medicaid benefits to pay for your long-term care. As you know, keeping in mind Congressman Waxman's statement that the purpose of this area of Medicaid is to prevent the impoverishment of the community spouse. So, if we reduce down to whatever that limit is, how do we achieve a purported savings by changing an asset limit from 109 to something less than that. Through you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Harp.
Thank you. Through you, Madam President. I believe that I answered the question. I'm thinking that the gentleman believes that based upon reducing the liquid asset level, that we would have impoverished the community spouse. Well, prior to increasing the asset level, I know of no concern that our asset level was so low that we, in fact, did that. One of the things that we still allow is for the community spouse to maintain the family home. And so we're talking about liquid assets here, and $50,000 in my district, frankly, would be a lot of money. Through you, Madam
Senator
President.
Kelly.
Thank you. The point that I'm raising is that under federal law, as well as department policy, that as part of the spend down, there's no requirement that the spend down money be paid to a nursing home. One only needs to spend for value. And that will not result in any purported savings in the Medicaid program by changing the asset limit from $109,000 to something less than that. What it will do, however, is that it reduces the amount of assets available to the community spouse, and it accelerates that individual's admission to a nursing home because they have less money to help pay their bills and their costs of living and probable home care costs, because as I said before, when the father goes into the nursing home, mom takes care of him. So men, for the most part, age in place. But when mom goes through that exact same aging process, there's no one there. So unless there's a champion in the community to be there for her, she's going to have to pay someone to provide those services, which are very expensive, as are taxes in the state of Connecticut, not only locally, but at the state level. So we need every single penny we've got to help the community spouse remain in the community. And quite frankly, I don't believe this budget does that. Furthermore, when we look at the cuts to the Connecticut Home Care Program and asking seniors to pay a copay, 7%. The average cost of care is about $2,500. And 7%, or about $175, doesn't seem like a lot of money. But in order to participate in that program at that level, you can't exceed $2,022. So you're looking at 9% of your income. And if you're less than 2,000, let's say 1,000, you're talking maybe 20% of your income. And then if you're in critical need, let's say the maximum under the Connecticut Home Care Program is $5,600. 7% is $397. And at $2,000, that's almost 20% of your income. Once again, we're asking more, but what it's doing is it's accelerating individuals' admission into the most costly area of the Medicaid program, to the detriment of the taxpayers and also the individual in need of assistance. So as we do our business here tonight, I do keep in mind the father who came to me from Monroe, who lost his job and is facing foreclosure on the house. Or the family from Seymour that has asked me to go fight for reduced spending and taxes in Hartford. Or the woman in Shelton who's 58 years old and she lost her job. And she thinks in this economy and the way that we have failed to create any net new jobs in Connecticut in 20 years, that she's never going to go back to work again. Or to the seniors that I know in Stratford that are asking me to pursue aging-in-place initiatives. That's what I'm thinking about tonight when it comes time to vote on this budget. And I'm also thinking about the Connecticut that my grandparents knew when they came from Ireland to this country, because Connecticut was a great place to live, work, and raise a family. It was good for them. It was good for my parents as I grew up here. And now I see the same challenges. Is Connecticut of tomorrow going to be what it was in the past? I don't know. Because we can't continue down the road of more taxes and more spending. President Ronald Reagan stated that democracy is just one generation away from extinction. And we need to think about comments like that as our government at all levels continues to tax and take the opportunity out of the American spirit. I had to pause and think. When communist Chinese start to school Americans on capitalism and government spending, raised an eyebrow. The last thing I want to see happen is to mortgage our children's future. And based on that, like us, state government must live within its means. The people of Connecticut, as they sit around their kitchen table, dealing with their problems and their children's future, are doing that. And we need to do it too. State government has become the special interest, and it needs to stop. And it needs to stop if we're going to have a Connecticut that I remember growing up, so that my kids can have that same future. So I would urge everyone here tonight to vote against this budget for jobs, for our children, for our seniors, and for our families. Thank you very much, Madam President.